So today we're talking about a film that kind of feels documentary style in some ways, but also feels narrative. It's got actresses that are playing themselves in some roles, but also ones that are voiced by different people because they're kind of that weird uncanny valley almost aspect of it. Yep. We're going to talk about a movie that's getting a lot of traction right now, potentially Oscar traction, a movie that skewers Hollywood, which Hollywood doesn't always like, but I think one that we can all agree is worth checking out, and that is She Said.
A film that I think is two things are going against it: the content of the film and the style of the film. It's very much based on, it's coming like another Best Picture spotlight.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that more when we talk about She Said.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals to tell us what movies we should review in the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. We got to submit our top 10s pretty soon.
Oh, God.
And so you can check out that webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about what could be an under radar kind of a hit movie for 2022. It's She Said.
Yeah. Megan Twohey and Jodie Cantor, two New York Times reporters, have broken one of the most important stories in the entertainment business, a scandal that has been allowed to go on for decades. But they face heavy obstacles in the form of lawsuits and intimidation as they take on notorious film producer and studio head Harvey Weinstein.
Okay, surprisingly, this is based on a book. We thought it was just the New York Times article, but actually there's a book titled She Said. The screenplay is written by Rebecca Lankowitz. She also wrote a couple other screenplays, if you have it on the credentials.
Yeah, I've seen Ida, which she wrote, which was a 2013 Best International Film nominee. Might have won, actually, that year.
Yeah, and Colette, I've seen that one, too. And Disobedience with, I think it's the two girls fall in love in the
oh, that's right, yeah.
In the religious order. But also she's released another script called Hot Milk, which Jessica Buckley is attached to.
Oh, really?
So right there, I'm already interested.
Yeah, I know, you put Jessie Buckley in a movie, I'm down.
Jessie Buckley's going to be in it. I'm going to be very much interested. So, directed by Maria Schrader. Not Schrader, I was practicing. Maria Schrader. She's an actress turned director. Very interesting choice. And she, if you look her up, she's actually a lot of acting credentials, but she's recently done directing. And I think that one of the hits was, what is it?
I'm Your Man is the one that I'm most aware of.
Right, I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen it either, no.
Which is official German selection film for the Academy in 2021. And then she did Unorthodox, which is on, I think it was a series on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
And then this is her first full feature in English.
Yeah. So you can tell this movie is going to be an actor's movie. When you get an actor behind the camera, you tend to see more performance-based films coming out of it. You know, especially at the beginning, as they like that you stick to what you know and what you can do.
I'm thinking like Lost Daughter with Maggie Gyllenhaal, very much an actor's.
That's very much performances where like some of the other aspects of it weren't as strong as the main performances you got on screen here. And we have in the lead role Carey Mulligan, who kind of did a very kind of scathing critique of men with Promising Young Woman, which I adored a couple years ago, and now she has a very different kind of movie here.
She definitely knows how to pick her projects, because I did like her in Promising Young Woman, and she was a dominating force. She's in the movie almost 90% of the movie in that one. And here she doesn't do a lot of the heavy lifting, but she does a lot of the lifting for the movie. I'm not taking away from what Zoe Kazan has done.
Yeah,
but these two people have worked together on other films. Carey Mulligan and Zoe.
Well, they've done work together. I think that they're actually friends too. I think was it Carey Mulligan's wedding that Zoe was a bridesmaid at. So they've been friends for a number of years, which kind of helps with that, because they're supposed to know each other going into the film. It's not like a meeting kind of a thing where they have to grow together as co-reporters. They're actually supposed to be people that are well aware of each other. And I think Zoe's character Jodie is more of the character that we as the audience are investing ourselves into, whereas Carey Mulligan's
Yes.
kind of the seasoned reporter. It seems to say that Megan Twohey is the
agree
seasoned
with
one.
that.
We start off the film with her investigating Trump, and we get a great vocal cameo from James Austin Johnson, who does the
Very
Trump
much
stuff
authentic,
on
it
SNL.
sounds like, yeah.
He does the SNL character for Trump now that Alec Baldwin isn't doing it. So he was cast in SNL pretty much to do Trump and then a couple other things. So
It was a great audio dip because I was like, did he get like an actual authentic recording? Because one of the things that works with this is they get the real people talking about this case.
yeah.
Like Ashley Judge comes on here. They talk. They got a little snippet of approval of Gwyneth Paltrow's statement in there.
Yep.
They talk about Gwyneth. She's not really in the movie, but she's kind of.
But I think that is her voice on the film.
Yes.
And of course we have kind of that like weird backgroundness of like Brad Pitt's company producing the film. Brad Pitt dated Gwyneth Paltrow for a number of years. When Gwyneth Paltrow came forward about her time with Weinstein, Brad Pitt kind of dismissed it. So I'm not really sure. Like, I'm surprised he was able to get her to do the movie, because it's kind of like, hey, remember when I didn't really believe you a couple decades ago? Well, you want to do this now? Like, maybe that was kind of his way of, apologizing, of like trying to embrace that, but I don't know.
I agree. There's
it's kind of a messy
there,
background.
Right? There has to be something there, right?
Yeah.
This is a huge apology. Right?
Yeah, the only one that I didn't really buy as far as people playing the actors was I thought the Rose McGowan voice didn't really sound like Rose McGowan.
No.
I had some trouble with that. It kind of had this like drawl to it at the end that kind of
And she
lilted.
didn't participate in this.
Yeah, she almost did, but then she kind of last minute decided not to. And I understand why. Why would you want to dredge this stuff up again?
I know.
The movie's going to get made regardless, but for such a small role, if I didn't want to revisit that, I can totally understand why.
Yeah, I hope that she gets the help. Rose
Yeah.
especially gets the help she needs. So, yes, it's based on a true story. Those gets a lot of hard criticism when you critique movies that are based on true stories, because we all know what's going to happen. We all kind of know the ending. And I'll talk about a little more in review. But sometimes we kind of critique harshly that something's based on a true story a little more than something that's completely fictional.
Yeah.
And it's because it's real life, right? Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to what I mentioned in our opening, which is that kind of uncanny valleyness. And that's not the right term for it, but the fact that we have some actresses playing themselves, but we have actresses in the movie playing reporters, but we have people who aren't the actresses being played by other people, and it's kind of that. I almost feel like it would have been better not to use anyone playing themselves, and just to go completely different.
That's an interesting dialogue you can have in film class talking about.
Because it's tough for you to kind of break the fact that this is a movie. It is not 100% correct to the story, and in fact there was a whole thing where New York Times actually found out they had someone who was doing not as much as Harvey, but he was doing like kind of sexual assault related stuff.
Oh yeah, the Rowan Farrow.
And in this film they cut a few of those characters out of the film, and it's like, I know you did it so you could shoot in the actual New York Times building, but you're kind of missing the fact that internally, even at your own business, you had these issues.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been a captivating side plot. So it's kind of that tough thing of what's documentary, what's narrative, what's real, what's not. That kind of creates this confusion. I think that might hurt its chances come Oscar season.
So one of the things I think about what's going to hurt these chances, even though I do thoroughly enjoyed the film, I'm highly recommending it, but one of the things that's going to hurt it is based on a true story. It's very sensitive material for Hollywood right now, and it's almost very similar to one that won Best Picture already, which is Spotlight, and something very similar to one Best Picture. Academy likes to stray from that.
Especially so close. Because Spotlight was
so close.
2015, I think?
Yeah.
So we're only 7 years on from that.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like forever with the pandemic. It's been 30 years since Spotlight. But
right.
But I think I agree with you. The film is very similar to that. It's almost like we took the model for it and kind of reapplied it here.
That's going to hurt it.
And that will hurt its chances. I also think, yeah, you're right. It's sensitive material. People know the story. Not everybody really wants to revisit it. And what I think about with Spotlight...
Hey, you want to go see that movie about the heart? Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think about, what was it, last year's The Last Duel by Ridley Scott, which was a film that came out and I was on my top 10 of the year. I love the movie.
Remember,
it was great. But it's also a movie that features a rape scene
at the core of it.
Multiple times. Yeah, and they keep revisiting the rape scene from other perspectives. And it's like, sure, the movie is like 90% just like... kind of like trying, like veering away from it, but that scene is so paramountly difficult to watch. I showed it to my wife a couple weeks ago because I thought like I think the movie is so good, and she's watching and she goes, that scene would be the reason I wouldn't see it in the theater. Right. And that's kind of the same thing here. This movie's not doing very well financially, and I think it's because why do you want to see this kind of movie in a theater? You might want to see it at home if you're going to watch it.
Right. All right, so up next is, we're kind of dancing around it a little bit, but our review of She Said. All right. So I'm going to be a little simple. This is on my top 10 list. I know that's very high for a lot of other people who are considered professional film critics. I see it at the top 20, maybe, or top 30. I really was really invested with it. I really like the pacing of it. It was just a smooth transition. I like the struggle with it. But it's, once thing, I have to put in my notes, very similar to Spotlight, and that's going to be a check for me. We talked about that. So overall, what is your first impressions?
So I really like the movie. It's not going to make my top 10, but that doesn't mean it's not fantastic. It's very good.
We have a lot of good movies out this year.
This is one of the best years I think I can remember, because I had a great top 10 in like April. Like if there were no other movies this year, I would have been content with my top 10 in April. Yeah. It's a fantastically well put together character piece. My issues with it is that around the whole idea, like, it doesn't confront some of the issues that I wish it would. It's a little clean cut. And I go back to the issues of, like, where, like, New York Times, like, you have this, I know, like, this is kind of cool that they shot in the actual New York Times building. It looks like an amazing set piece, but it's actually the real building. But you're avoiding some of your internal problems here. There's also these issues of, as far as Weinstein goes, they're not really confronting the fact that we've known Harvey Weinstein was doing this for decades. It's not like it was a big deal.
In the story, it's almost like, what is this thing?
They're like, wait, they think Harvey did this? And it's like, there's jokes on 30 Rock back in the early 2000s about how we don't stand in a room with Harvey Weinstein alone. Like, people made humorous jokes about it in the 90s and 2000s, and we didn't really confront that in the narrative. I know this is me putting what I want on the film instead of what I got. I just think, like, it skirts some of the heavier, like, internalized debate for an externalized debate.
I think you're hitting on the nail. It's another minus for this movie for a lot of critics. It looks very clean cut, very glossy for content that you really want to get your hands dirty about. Yeah. But the product looks very sanitized. Yeah. Almost. Too much sanitized, where you talk about some heavy stuff in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But the authentic look, like, you want to invest in these two people investigating it. Jody and the other, you want to invest in, and their lives outside. Those scenes seem a little bit forced. It's almost like, all right, you're pregnant right now. Yeah, this almost seems like you're adding on to the tension rather than participating in it. But right, I agree. Some of it looks a little clean cut, a little more sanitized than you want it to be.
Yeah, but as far as great things that the film does, I think it has one of the most incredible, not just opening sequences, but opening acts of the film. I think the way it opened in Ireland in '92, it's kind of a very, like, wait, did I click play on the right movie?
It's almost the beginning of the same thing I did with Cabin in the Woods when I went to the theater. It's like, wait, did I go to the right theater?
Yeah, are we in the right spot here for this? So we have a really fantastic opening that highlights, again, just how pervasive this has been. And again, it goes back to, like, if they'd done that throughout the whole rest of the narrative, gain major points for me. But then that whole first act with the Megan Twohey going after Trump thing, I think it was a very well done way to show how she's operating by herself before we introduce Zoe Kazan's Jody. Yeah. So we understand her fully as a character, and then we jettison her a little bit so we can focus on Jody before bringing her back into the narrative. There's that scene where after she does the report on Trump, where she gets the phone call, the random one that says, like, the guy says, I'm going to rape you and kill you and bury you somewhere. Right, and it's just like, holy, like, whoa, like, that stopped me. Like, I got chills when that happened, because it's like, imagine just getting that call
out of nowhere. And then the bar scene, where it's just very awkward.
Oh, God.
They go to the bar just to deflate.
Yeah.
And of course, some guy has to, bother him.
I get flirting with a pretty girl, but at the same time, when she says
stop,
no,
hey,
you probably don't have much more chance than that, buddy. Let's move on.
Move on. But you authentically feel, not only through their investigations, but what they have to go through, the obstacles, even through the hierarchy of, business and their editors and everything, of just getting it out and getting evidence, and all that stuff. I do like that aspect.
Oh, I love the logistics of the story. And how you can't break it. You can't just say Harvey Weinstein did a bunch of horrible things. You have to prove it. You have to get people to come forward and testify. And that's one of the most frustrating things, is that he was so good at getting these NDAs and getting these, you can't discuss why I'm paying you this money. And so their problem is they have the answers in front of them, but they can't use them.
And their approach is very different. Zoe's character is very straightforward, not very humanitarian. Just tell me the facts almost. But then you have the other Carrie, who is very circumnavigates around it.
Yeah, because of her time going after the Trump situation too. She's dealt with the fact that victims don't always want to come forward. They fear retribution, but they can't come forward in some cases. Like, it's a very interesting double play between these two characters who, in lesser writing hands, they would seem like the same person.
Yeah. the final product is what we get to see, but initially the script called for 200 scenes in the movie. Oh. So Rebecca had over a lot of content. So I think there was a lot of editing to what they wanted to get done. Obviously, they cramped it into about a 2-hour film, but there's a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor. That's 200 scene script. Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot more stuff they wish they could probably had, but they understand if you put a kick out a 3-hour movie, people are going to say,
especially a 3-hour movie. About go back to The Last Duel, which is about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like, you kick out a long movie that's about a really tough subject, and it makes people push even further away. I think that's one of the reasons Babylon is not doing all that well, is because the films, it's a lot of movie, and it's a long lot of movie.
Especially for films it looks like it's a film for film lovers.
Yeah.
For me, I would like to see a nomination for Carey Mulligan. I really did like her performance in there, but it's one of those things like it's almost automatic for her. She did fantastic in everything, and then she really did fantastic in this one too.
Well, and outside of Promising Young Woman, most of her performances are so restrained in film. Like, her character is not flashy most of the time. You know, you look at Drive. She's great in Drive, but she's not flashy in
Rescue
Drive.
Me, right?
You know, I think one of my favorite films of hers is An Education from, I think, 2009. That was the first film I recognized her in. She's phenomenal in that movie, but she's a reserved character. Everyone else around her is kind of lifting up the film and adding all these layers to it, but her character is supposed to be reserved, and that's kind of how she is here too. So while I would like to see a nomination, I'm wondering if it's going to happen just because it's not a flashy performance.
I don't think it's going to be an adopted screenplay. There's a lot there, but I don't know what they left. But this heavy content, I'm highly recommending it.
Yeah,
still on my top 10, and I'll talk about more on my show why it's a top 10. Not so much for you, but we're highly recommending it. It's hard to digest content.
Yeah, it's not an easy film to watch, and I think one of the things that I have an issue with is because in Spotlight, again, I knew what they were going to find out in Spotlight. Yeah. I didn't know how they found it, how they cracked the story. This is one for me, like, just as a person who's existed in this space for so many years, I'm aware of the Harvey Weinstein story. I knew how they cracked it, even not having read the book. I read the New York Times article. I got all the information necessary.
You put the pressure to get people.
Yeah, and so, like, the areas where the film introduced elements I wasn't aware of, that was where it had my interest the most. And some of these just really simplistic ways of delivering the information, like the Weinstein tapes, and then these like long shots down corridors and hotels that just kind of let you exist and have to listen to it, is really tough to do, but it's really powerful to exist in there. And then also the way the film demonstrates why women don't always come forward. Why women, because it has to do with like such a personal part of you that has been taken away from you.
Because the title of the movie is just half of what we have to talk about, is the he said, she said.
But we get like Jennifer Elliott, who plays Laura Madden. She plays the woman who's going through breast cancer in the film, who wants to come forward. But again, like, she's dealing with all these like internalized pains, like in this trauma that's existed for years that has almost manifested itself in a physical way. It's tough for her to want to come forward, and I think that's the most fascinating part, because another perspective from a not guy,
And sometimes when you're doing a kind of reporting for this, and they kind of show it, you have to do things you don't want to do to get the article. And you have to approach people that probably won't want to talk about it, and you have to do those hard, walk up to the person's driveway. Hey! Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your wife been sexually assaulted and she got a bunch of money?
Wait, what? No, like, you're from New York? No.
Right, yeah.
I think that's where the film is at it has its strengths, is the interesting way in which two characters talking is almost cheer-worthy. At the end of the film has a lot of phone calls that I almost cheered during, which you don't often get a cheer-worthy phone call in a movie, so that's quite a win.
He thought being a bully and a rapist, and then when you finally get caught in a corner and knows the way, I'll just be a bully more, is going to solve your problem.
Oh,
what
yeah.
What an idiot.
I'll just deny and push.
And bully.
And
God.
We'll just say it, we're happy he's in jail.
Right, yes. Exactly.
Enjoy your time there, Harvey.
So, have you seen She Said?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on the film down below. Do you think it's going to get any Oscar nominations this year? We got a couple weeks until those Oscar nominations drop, so we'd love to hear your thoughts before then. While you're down there, please make sure to like and subscribe. They're 2 free things you can do that help to support the channel immensely, and you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. Don't forget as well, Nick mentioned that Patreon. The link's down there in the description. Patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm. Join us and tell us what to talk about next.
Exactly.
Yeah. And from all of us here at the show, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. You can find all my film reviews over at GoForMovies.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, and I'll be releasing my top 10 on the show with Brian Eggert. So look for that soon. And I'll see you again.
See ya.